Look at me and tell me you don't see a monster. You didn't answer him. It's not like he thought you would, but still that insistent doubt lingered in the back of his mind. That doubt that maybe you were lying to him, yet you just stared at him. No, you stared right through him, and that just made him all the more conflicted on what you were actually thinking. How is he supposed to know that behind those beautiful eyes, all you saw was his alluring, handsome face, so narrow and so irrevocably dangerous and malevolent? You liked the way his translucent skin glimmered in the dim lighting, in contrast to his narrowed, cerulean orbs. How despite his imperfections, and how he falsely believed he was perfect, you really did. The damage he inflicted on his face all those years ago didn't define him in your eyes. But his face wasn't what defined him. It was inside. That fraction of the boy he used to be. That's what defined him. He wasn't a monster, while he still had that part of him running through his veins. As difficult as it was for him to believe that, he was still capable of feeling. A monster didn't feel. You're not a monster, your voice quietly whispered then, tearing him from his inner denial. That isn't what you were supposed to say. You were supposed to tell him how ugly he was, how you hated him. He was a monster. I didn't quite catch it all. I said, you're not a monster. From the way you flinched, he knew you must have predicted his next movement. Yet as he slammed your back against the tiled wall, you still stared at him with that perpetual look in your eye, without uttering a sound. He was so quiet, minus the water dripping from a nearby pipe. He was fueled by his anger, proficient in doing anything, and you still challenged him. You were weak physically, but mentally you were stronger than he gave you credit for. No one else would have lasted this long. Apprehensively, he traced his fingers along the crevice of your shoulder, a layer of sweat glistening on your skin, a prime indication that you were frightened of him. Or maybe it was the heat inside his abhorrent bathroom. No, it was definitely fear. He could almost smell it. Or at least that was until you surprised him by agilely lifting your hand to his face. How stupid were you? And how stupid was he for actually having a part of him that wanted to believe that he deserved it? With cat-like reflexes, he gripped your wrist tightly and pinned it against the wall, trying desperately to ignore the way your eyes finally met. And all at once, he didn't know what to do with the emotions suddenly welling up inside of him. He didn't deserve to know what love was, and you had no right to look at him like that. This, he clenched his fists precipitously, his voice almost cracking under the pressure of the situation. His anger made him defensive, and that pretty face of yours just made it worse. This is why I can't fucking do it. His expression changed at that thought. Not because he didn't want to admit he loved you, he just wasn't in the right state of mind to feel these things right now. Not like he ever was anyway. Do what? He barely gave you time to react before his hand grabbed your neck and hauled you up the wall, the small of your back taking the brunt of the force while your tiptoes barely touched the floor. Your hand scratched at his skin, but you barely felt it, not even when your nails hitched into the grooves of his knuckles. In fact, he thrived on it. The way your heart accelerated against his body when he leaned into you, the way a series of ragged gasps escaped your mouth and filled his ears with music, but not as much as the way you were now looking at him. He despised it when you looked at him like you loved him. He wanted resentment, anything to make him feel something other than what he was feeling after what you did. He tightened his grip around your throat before growling quietly, "You know what?" Jeff. He could hear the desperation in your voice, but it wasn't enough. It was never enough. Tell her, Jeffrey. No. Tell her. No! Then admit she doesn't love you. He was right. How could he be so stupid? How could you possibly love him? He was a psychopath, a killer. He physically and mentally abused you time and time again. He messed with your feelings like they meant nothing to him. You hated him, or at least that's what the voice in his head told them. He did love you. He loved you so much it was unbearable, or what he believed his twisted perspective on love meant. You were the only thing that mattered to him. He went through hell and back to find you after a mask, after they took you. He conquered his own fucking tears to save you, so why now? After everything, did he feel the need to hurt you, to refuse to believe that you loved him too? You don't get it, do you, Jeffrey? She'll never love you. I understand you. I'm all you need. I don't fucking need you. You're nothing without me. I had everything before I made you realize what you are. It was wrong. This altered personality, this voice, it wasn't real. He knew it, yet he still couldn't distinguish that it was playing games with his mind, and no matter how much he tried, he couldn't figure the situation, but part of him believed it. He couldn't keep searching for something, someone who no longer existed. He couldn't keep denying that Jeffrey was never coming back. If he could change, he would, but he couldn't change who he had become. This was who he was, and he had to learn to live with it, and so did you. I can't be what you want me to be. Jeffrey, your cry disrupted his moment of sadness and of madness. Your cry disrupted his moment of madness, deterring him. And suddenly, like everything was in slow motion, he loosened his grip on your neck. He could hear you, coughing as you crumped to the floor. But it was like he was watching from another perspective. You no longer eluded the confidence from before. Now, you were scared of him. He could tell from the way you crawled towards the bathroom door, yet as your fingers reached for the handle, he snarled, thrashing his stringent hands against the door to stop you from leaving. You're not going anywhere, Sarah. And only as the word left him did everything stop around him. You said, don't fucking say it. You said, don't fucking say it. My name. A month later, you jolted awake, gripping your face in an attempt to stop those voices in the back of your head, voices which haunted you in your sleep, a recurring nightmare of what they put you through, of what they put Jeff through, their voices. They'd been weeks and yet you still couldn't relegate the memories. Every time you closed your eyes, they were there, waiting, and every time it always ended with that masked Tuscany Sleets knife-wielding asshole lunging his knife into your leg. Subconsciously, your other hand traced the scar underneath the fabric of your somber leggings, a ceaseless reminder of what they'd done. It drove Jeff further to the brink of destruction, crossing the line where sanity met its alter ego. He'd always hovered on the edge, but the ordeal had broken him. Drinking was his way of forgetting. He was paranoid, quick-tempered, worse than he was before. The slightest thing would set him off now. It would be as simple as moving the wrong way, or standing too close to him. Nothing you did could repress his temperamental outbursts, or his mood swings, which would change so suddenly and drastically. You swore it gave you whiplash. You hated seeing him this way. And you hated him seeing this. Heck, it was like as miserable as before. Then it was unbearable now. At least before all of that happened, he had some sort of grip on reality. Now he was just an empty shell, drowning in his own self-destruction. His only outlet? Killing. Nothing has changed. If anything, it only gotten worse. He didn't hide his hobby from you now. He stumbled in at the early hours of morning, covered in blood of his most recent victims, his off-white hoodie smothered, his knife unrecognizable, and pretended it didn't matter. That the things he did didn't bother you. Then he lay awake for hours, conflicted and reeling in his own downward spiral when you refused to engage with him. He'd lost himself. Exhaling a sigh, you tried to calm your breathing, hesitantly peering around at your surroundings. Your pulse was deafening, thumping loudly in your eardrums. There were no monsters lurking in the darkness, just shadows that danced across the walls like a collage of pictures. Lifting a hand, you brushed the back of your palm across your forehead, wiping the glistening sweat away before the same hand reached across the frayed sheet in search of Jeff's warmth, hoping somehow it might give you some comfort. But the space was empty. Reeling round to face the space beside you, your face etched into a look of confusion. Jeff? Silence. Jeff! You hissed a little louder, unraveling yourself in the sheets. Now stood in the darkness without the protection of the covers. The austere, ominous presence of the room only made you feel more anxious. Everything about this place was cold, unsettling, lonely. Still, no answer. And then, you caught sight of him. Jeff's shadow danced among the others in the appeasing darkness, like it was made to stand out. The delineation of his tall, thin physique adorned in skinnies that clung to his legs, Converse that abraded against the metal railing when they came into contact with it, a long-sleeved white hoodie, drenched and clinging to his upper half, accessorized by several scars and cuts, which embellished his hands. You couldn't quite make out any more than that. Besides the way he cursed incoherent things into the silent night, his voice so hurt and distressed it almost broke your heart. His hands reached out, gripping the railing of the banister callously, and then he was climbing onto it, using his strength to hoist himself onto the edge. Jeff, stop! You desperately tried to yell, though the strain in your sudden panic caused it to come out unrecognizable. Your feet were moving not even a second later, instincts driving you despite tripping over an obstacle of empty bottles and discarded clothing on the filthy floor, your bare skin burning from the friction of the carpet. Every limb in your body ached, every breath you took burned. Every word that reiterated in your mind repeated the same damn thing. Stop him. Time becomes extraneous. It didn't matter. What mattered was stopping the very reason for your existence. The one person in this entire world you cared about most from doing something stupid. What are you doing? You cried in frustration, stumbling onto the balcony. The icy particles from the wind froze your heated skin, your efforts weakening, and your feet finally buckled under the pressure from the fast-paced sprint you took from the bedroom. Collapsing now, mere feet away, you looked up, droplets of rain cascading down your face from the dreary, dark sky. He only stood up there, under the relentless rain pouring from the sky, like it had several tears to shed, and the storm resembled his emotions. Below you, 8 stories down, the trees appeared skeletal and eerie, traumatized by the flickering streetlights and sirens blaring in the distance. But he just stood, his callous fingers slipping from the edge of the railing, like he was contemplating how much easier it would be just to jump and be done with it, to not live in this existence anymore. But he wasn't doing anything. All you could hear was the intense heaviness of his breathing. You really think I'm gonna kill myself, princess? He drawled darkly, sarcasm laced in his tone. I was just admiring the view. You froze, not because of what he said, but because of how he looked at you. Not once in all the weeks that followed, the events which led him to becoming like this, had he actually looked at you the way he just did. Those eyes, sapphire like the color of the ocean, shaded by the dark, charred remainders of his eyelids, held so much beauty, so much perplexity. They told the story of a boy who was just as lost as you were. It was like looking at your own reflection. Dark hair, shoulder length and textured into many layers framed his perfectly symmetrical face, contrasting with the pale, almost translucent complexion of his skin. It had been so long since you truly looked at him, and it destroyed you inside, because no matter how drastically he had changed in appearance, no matter how far he became, he would always be the boy you fell in love with in your eyes. You're drunk. The dark-haired male only snorted at your matter-of-fact comment. Oh, no fucking shit, doll. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. As if to emphasize his point, he threw his right hand up before chucking up another bottle behind him, breaking instantaneously. How many have you had? Enough, Jeff drawls. Do you think you actually look fucking concerned? A smirk dances across his lips when he turns away, bouncing on the railing as if he'd done it many times before, even with a damp surface and chipping paint, as he somehow managed to jump down from it and land on the soles of his Converse in front of you. Now stood there, it became increasingly obvious how intoxicated he really was. If the stumble in his stance was anything to go by. Don't tell me you actually give a fuck. You grimaced, the stench of alcohol evident on his brain. Taking a step back, you inhale a sharp breath. It was never good to engage in conversation with him when he was like this. I'm going back to bed, Jeff. Next time you want to act like an idiot, don't expect me to stop you. What you could only describe as anger flashed across his face before he smirked again. That a threat, princess? You only ignored him, or at least you tried to. For as long as you stepped back into the rundown apartment, a callous hand reached outwards, grabbing your wrist in a vice-like grip before hauling you backwards and slamming you against the stone-sprayed wall. Harsh breaths lingered against your cheek, warm, raspy. Don't, he all but spat, his voice loud, contentious. There was no tenderness in his tone, no hint of passion, no understanding. It was a warning. Ever. His grip got tighter until you were clawing at his hand, desperately trying to pry it off before he broke your wrist. Not like it would be the first time. Walk away from me. Let go of me. No. You yanked backwards, only for him to pull you even closer, the tension rising. Let fucking go of me, Jeff. Jeff only scowled in response, momentarily stunned by your nerve to swear back at him. Don't test my fucking patience, dollface. Now shut. He paused mid-word, those oddly handsome features twisting into a look that scared you senseless. Shut up before I hurt you. Hurt me? You laughed. Not really laughed, but out of shock. No, Jeff. Slowly, your hand reached to touch that masked face, like an electric current, everything you touched. You can't hurt me. Not anymore. He tilted his head then, but didn't speak. He knew what you were about to say. He knew it. I'll talk to you when you're sober. You can't fucking just walk away from me. He grit his teeth, reveling in the cry he provoked when the grip on your wrist got unbearably tight, highlighting the faint and healing bruises that already resided there. You belong to me. Maybe if you weren't such a fucking bitch. Your eyes darkened slightly as he firmly grasped your face with his gilded fingers, coercing you to look into his hateful, glistening orbs. See? I wouldn't have to hurt you to prove a fucking point. Scoffing indignantly, you clench your jaw and jerk your head to the side. Says the asshole who drinks to forget his problems. Will that shut him up? You smiled, reveling in the fact that you rendered him speechless with your clever retort. It wasn't often he had nothing to say, or at least that was until his callous hand came into sharp contact with your face, the sheer force behind it throwing you backwards into the floor. In a daze, you lifted your fingertips to your cheek, only aggravating the stinging red mark more. Maybe I drink because you fucking bring me to it. Seriously? You thrust your hand outwards, trying to push him, but he only remained where he was. It was infuriating that your idle threats meant nothing. Did nothing. You're seriously blaming me? It was your fault it happened, you fucking asshole. And it was your fault for making me go back. Because you're a heartless piece of shit. And you're... Jeff's face darkened, resembling a malevolent thundercloud. He couldn't comprehend the words to express how he felt. Don't try my patience, princess. I can and will do whatever the fuck I want, and you can't stop me. You shook your head, battling with the reluctance to look into those forlorn eyes as you came down from your heated argument. Eyes which held so much beauty, so much perplexity, so much pain. Those eyes belonged to a miscreation who was condemned to a life that would never end, to live without a purpose, without a meaning. There was no light in the darkness behind any of their eyes. The others, like him, just emptiness. Their dysfunctional relationships were a wreckage, regardless of how much they tried to salvage it. Concerning humans, who they all shared a mutual hatred for, and reasons, although they never spoke about it. Memories filled with so much misery had caused them all to be the way they were. As much as you yearned to understand, straying down that path would only serve to make you sympathize with them, to find reason in the way Jeff treated you, when in actual fact, there was no excuse. You couldn't change Jeff. You had tried so hard in these last few years, but he was beyond repair. I wish I had never met you. Jeff took a slow breath, leaning closer, a cruelness in his smile. And yet, we both know that's a lie. He paused, because no matter how much you wish you never met me, you still love me. You can't help it. You will never stop loving me. His words provoked you to a point you couldn't come back from, and before you knew it, your own hand struck his in retaliation. The scream that escaped him then couldn't be considered human, and before you could even blink, he swiped his foot underneath yours, knocking you off balance with the only grip he had on your flimsy t-shirt to keep you upright before hauling you upwards into his arms. Your knees hooked over his right, and your upper back making impact with the cold surface on his left arm. Have you forgotten what I'm capable of, dollface? He grits, emphasizing the words like he was abhorred by your idiocy, by the way you always had to challenge him, by the way you thought he wouldn't hurt you. Stalking into the room you came from, he effortlessly threw you down on the floor. How weak you are! You respired shallowly as you attempted to climb to your feet, your hands desperately scraping against the patterned wallpaper. Jeff only smirked as he watched you struggle before hastily encircling your wrist and hauling you to your feet. You couldn't help but steady yourself against his chest as you swayed slightly. You despised how weak you were acting, but you didn't possess the energy to do anything else. Jeff held you there for a few moments before pushing your body towards the flocculent mattress, watching with fascination as you sprawled across the sheets. He always loved the way your tresses cascaded across the sheets while your cheeks flushed with apprehension and resentment. In fact, he was enthralled by everything. Even the way you were breathing seemed to be enough. You thrust your foot into his chest, causing this dark-haired male's eyes to widen in shock as you reeled backwards, growling as you rolled off the bed and poised yourself on the balls of your feet before pivoting on your heel, fully intending to run out of the bedroom door before he expeditiously entangled his fingers in your hair, forcibly yanking you backwards until your back once again hit the mattress and he had climbed on top of you, pinning you effortlessly. You shook your head harshly, trying to ignore the way his fingertips ran across your bottom lip. Have I proven my point yet? He whispered mockingly, gently caressing your flustered face. You only fought against his vigorous strength, the hollow of your neck dipping further between your collarbone. Fighting was useless, and Jeff knew this. Slowly, you ceased your efforts to struggle with him, your eyebrows furrowing together. Do you know what your problem is, Jeff? He didn't answer, but intrigue burned behind those eyes. Your problem is that nobody hates you more than you do. As soon as the words left your lips, his hand reached behind your neck, gripping it as tightly as he pressed his lips against yours, passion igniting the emptiness that coursed through his veins. Startled by the sudden display of affection, you pressed your hands against his chest, your fingers splaying against his hoodie, intending to push him away, but instead, you left it there, his face angled, the rough texture of his self-inflicted wounds grating against your soft skin, smearing the crimson liquid along your cheekbones, the metallic taste amalgamated with the connection, but you'd already lost yourself in the aggressive display of his emotions, a sign that no matter how far gone he was, he still loved you. But that moment wouldn't last long, because moments later, a chilling laugh resounded in the silence.